this Samadhi empowerment text here is a liturgical or ritual text, but not so much ritual as we ordinarily think of ritual. There isn't a lot of things going on, ringing bells, sprinkling water, all of that. It's not there. What I mean by ritual or liturgical text here is that it's organized into verses. There are things to recite. There are things to visualize. It involves the coordination of body, speech, and mind. Body is to be placed in the optimal position for keeping the mind clear, alert, and at ease. Clear, alert, clarity, and alertness belong to the same characteristic that is necessary, so that it's not dull. Then spacious and at ease belongs to the other quality that is necessary. So body and mind has to be placed, has to be brought together in a way that has these two qualities of being clear and alert, spacious and at ease. Speech will be coordinated with the body and mind by relating to the sounds, enunciating the sounds of the text. Then mind has to follow the visualization. And on top of that, mind has also to be able to be, this comes from the clarity and the at ease part. When the mind is really clear and at ease, then the knowledge and the information that you have acquired through the learning part and the reflecting part, let whatever that is relevant to a particular practice just come, rather than you go searching for it. So in the Gongchik section we've been looking at, Kyopa Rinpoche was warning against mistaking any experiences of emptiness. Here, emptiness basically refers to what we think as the final result of our practice. So any experiences that arise from learning, reflecting, and even meditating, we have to be careful not to be misled by being trapped in particular states of experiences that we think, oh, this must be the attainment we're talking about, or by being sidetracked into some other experience and then again mistaking that for the result, right? Yes, so Kyopa Rinpoche warned against that. But as I said again and again, when he warns against it, he's not saying. It's sort of like saying, you know, to someone who is just learning how to drive, yeah? Driving is dangerous, right? Having a driving license carries responsibility. Your vehicle could end up being a weapon that would kill someone if you're not careful. So these are warnings. Nonetheless, you're going to drive. You should drive. Likewise, you should learn. You should reflect. You should meditate. But also understand, watch out for these traps and sidetracks. So here in this context, you know, for the Samadhi empowerment, actually, if you just say, oh, I want to practice, meaning often what we mean is I just want to meditate according to this text. But if you don't have sufficient learning, if you don't have sufficient reflecting, then it's kind of hard. When you practice, you're drawing on a blank. You don't have much to draw from. But when you are meditating, when you're practicing, when you're drawing from, you are not necessarily actively pulling information in. There are some traditions that actively encourage you to do that, for sure. It's kind of lineage styles. The more scholastic lineages tend to emphasize a more structured analysis, sevenfold reasoning. All those are taught by the Indian masters, for sure, in which the spirit of that kind of investigation was taught by the historical Buddha, for sure. The importance of analyzing, the importance of not immediately believing whatever it is that turns up in your experience. Sure, Buddha taught that. The great Indian masters elaborated on that. But especially in Kagyu, the more yogic side of this, it says, while might be beneficial to do that kind of systematic pooling information and meditating on that, there's also a way that doesn't encourage that. The way that doesn't encourage that also doesn't mean this way discourages studying, learning, and reflecting. But it's just, no, it's saying they all have a place when it comes to time to meditate, like when we're going to do the Samadhi empowerment. So when we do the vase empowerment, so this is the second key point. Although there are 4 empowerments given there, and also in our Guru Puja text, there are the 4 empowerments. For most of us right now, what we need to focus on, for the most part, is the first of the 4, the vase empowerment. The vase empowerment is the basis. Once you get good at, so to say, once you become more and more convinced of the vision, so to say, of the first empowerment, then you know you don't have to fear. You don't have to worry, oh, am I going to get the second empowerment or not? And I'm going to get the third empowerment or not? And am I going to get the fourth empowerment or not? Kyoba Rinpoche's way of teaching this says you don't need to worry about that. In fact, Kyoba Rinpoche even say, in an even broader context, right? He says, you focus on developing renunciation. You focus on purifying your own mind. Now, the methods of purifying and the methods of renunciation might involve praying for others, generating metta, generating karuna for others. But you don't need to try to figure out, am I really helping others or not? That he would consider is a form of being sidetracked. You first need to be convinced that in order to purify self-grasping, I should develop cherishing others. I should develop caring for others. He says, if you meditate on that, whether you will or you will not actually do something for others in that meditation, secondary. Of course, there are a lot of stories that show that it can benefit others, but don't dwell on that, in fact. Because you might get caught up in. I can tell you, for especially if you do this a lot, you will find situations where your prayer or your practices seem to work for other people. And that's a very dangerous sidetrack, actually. On the one hand, yes, you feel like, oh, but this will give me more confidence. But actually, it's a dangerous sidetrack. In Gyoba Rinpoche's own life experience, before he met Pomodrupa, he was already a very serious practitioner. He received Vajravarahi empowerment. He did retreats on it. His father was a practitioner of Vajrabhairava, a wrathful form of Manjushri. And it is said that there were things happening in his life, Gyoba Rinpoche's life. This is after his parents passed away. Apparently there were like a famine in his area, and his parents passed away because of that. Not enough food and all the problems that arose from there. Collapse of the local economy, so to say, not so dissimilar from this COVID-19 wreaking havoc in some places and affecting some areas way worse than some other areas, and so they experienced a lot of hardship, So later, after his parents passed away, he mostly meditated, went into retreats, and did a lot of practices. But then, because of how harsh the environment was, there were people out of jealousy towards him, because he was getting a good number of supporters, patrons. But out of jealousy, people were doing things either directly to harm Gyoba Rinpoche or to harm Gyoba Rinpoche's patrons. And in one case that is highlighted in his biography, someone, I think, beat up his patrons or stole from his patrons or something like that. Then it is said that these people who beat up his patrons, they mysteriously died. So then word got around, oh, don't mess with this Lama. And so then Gyoba Rinpoche thought, oh my God, this is really dangerous. He really felt, he said, So this shows, at first he thought, oh, my practice must really be powerful, that people who harm my supporters, they get harmed. Now, I'm not saying, I don't think Gyoba Rinpoche is even thinking of vengeance or retaliation, but just seeing how karma quickly ripened for these people who harm him. Even in Buddha's life, you have stories like that when people try to do things to the Buddha. Then suddenly they meet with a very negative, like death or something terrible happens. This, from a karmic point of view, is the ripening of karma, of course. It's not like the Buddha or Gyoba Rinpoche sending, Mahakala to go beat them up. But even that, Gyoba Rinpoche understood, he said, oh no, this is really very dangerous. So it's said that he left the area. He didn't want to encourage such things to happen. He said, oh my God, my practice, even if it is their karma, but I have become a condition for that kind of things to happen. I cannot, I have to leave now. So it said that he took off. I have another, then also like in the Chinese tradition, one of my early teachers, I didn't really have a relationship with him, but I look up to this teacher as being a paragon of true practice, serious practice. And he always said, he taught, the power of reciting and practicing, focusing on what's known as the Great Compassionate Dharani. Some, especially my Malaysian friends, we are all very familiar with that. When we were just kids, some of us have already memorized. I memorized it when I was around maybe 12. It's a pretty long Dharani, 84 sentences, so to say. I think I memorized it when I was around 12. I remember because this was in the house that I grew up in, and then we moved to another house when I was 13. But I remember vividly making an effort to memorize this Dharani in the living room of my old house, because my grandmother would chant it a lot every day. I think Mei Ma probably also memorized it when you were 12, 13 or whatever. I have Theravada friends in Malaysia, you know. They're for the most part very kind of strict Theravada, but they say also, you know, oh, when I was a teenager, I already memorized this Mahayana Dharani, you know. So anyway, this Chinese master, you know, he's famous for emphasizing the recitation of this. And another Dharani, which is way, way longer, called the Shurangama Dharani, which is the white umbrella Tara Dharani. But even that, you know, he says, you have to be very careful with this. Especially when signs appear that seems to suggest that your practice of this Dharani is producing some effects, right, in helping other people. He says, oh, be on guard, you know, watch out for that. Yeah, he says, watch out for that. He says, those are, you know, the doings of Mara. And the point is, again, you know, it's not that you do not recite that, you do not cultivate that, you do not have the motivation, you should not think about helping others, you should not pray for others. The point is, understand first and foremost, when you pray for others, when you visualize light going out, purifying beings of the six realms, light coming back, right? And a lot of deity practice, we visualize that, we practice that. But the basis of that for most of us right now has to be based on understanding. I need to clean out my mess. But if that was just it, I need to clean out my mess, I don't care about others. Then, of course, it becomes an obstacle. But I need to clean out my mess so that I can be of help and of benefit to others. So Mahayana motivation, Hinayana focus. So in other contexts, Gyoba Rinpoche will say that. You focus on renunciation. You focus on purifying your own mind. But don't do it with the narrow motivation of, you know, hey guys, you are on your own. Hasta la vista, you know, I'm going to go first. No, not that. The motivation is Mahayana. But the focus has to be, you know. And if you need confidence, let the confidence be built upon seeing how this practice, including the practice of generating love and compassion for others, seeing how this practice have changed you. The more you see how it has changed you, changing you from self-cherishing to cherishing others, the more you see that, the more confidence you will gain. And that kind of confidence is unshakable. If it is the kind of confidence that comes from how your practice, right, is helping others, it's very unreliable. You know, how do you know? Sometimes it seems like it's working. Sometimes it seems like it's not working. Sometimes it seems like your meditation or your practice is having such a wonderful impact on everything around you. Sometimes it seems like it's not having any impact. Unreliable. Even on yourself, it's also unreliable, but compare the two, it's way less unreliable if you say, you know, I'm going to check. So in Lojong, it says, you know, of the two witnesses, right, trust the primary. And that's also the meaning of that. It's not out of selfishness, but it's out of being modest about, being careful about, what can I more confidently know? My mind or other people's situation? Well, think about it. My mind. So when we focus on our own, and this is not saying that you are always there, but Khyalpa Rinpoche says, if you focus on that, that basis begins to change. So later when we look more specifically at the section of vows in the Gongchik, it says how it's not that the vows change so much as the capacity of the vow holder evolves. So in a very natural way, you don't even need to say, oh, now I'm going to practice Mahayana. Now I'm going to practice Vajrayana. But naturally, your practice of renunciation, your practice of, you know, purifying your own mind will begin to evolve into the practice of bodhicitta, front and center. In the system of practicing the three levels altogether, of course, we still start with bodhicitta, but the capacity to actually be working from the motivation of bodhicitta becomes more and more authentic. It will begin to evolve. Then there's an expression used in the commentaries, evolving or transforming upwards. That we will transform upwards. Likewise, of the four empowerments, the vase empowerment that we focus on. Vase empowerment, yeah. Let me read this. All the numerous distinctions as this or that of mundane or supramundane phenomena, relative and ultimate, general and particular characteristics, white and black, and so on, are inseparable. Inseparable as the nature of the mandala of the enlightened body, speech, and mind. So this, you can say, it expands on the line in our Samadhi empowerment, right? For the vase empowerment, the last line of the vase empowerment, what does it say? The identity. This is an English choice. It's the exact same word that in the other passage is translated as inseparability. Yeah? The identity. Nidu. The identity of appearance emptiness and the mandala of deities. And so here again, all the numerous distinctions, which is appearances, as this or that, mundane, supramundane, samsara, nirvana, relative, ultimate, general, particular, white, black, and so on, are inseparable. Inseparable from what? Inseparable as the nature of the mandala of the enlightened body, speech, and mind. An analogy can be made with the characteristics of the person and the characteristics of conventional phenomena propounded by ordinary people and non-Buddhist extremists, which are all of them included and described in the Buddhist teachings. In what way are they inseparable? They are inseparable by their nature from the very beginning. On the level of appearances, of course, they seem disconnected or quite separate, but on the level of nature, they are inseparable from the beginning. Having realized this, one then trains in this understanding. Having realized this is when the vase empowerment has become successful enough. Receiving vase empowerment, again, also is not like or any of the four empowerments for that matter, it's not like a one-time thing. But receiving the vase empowerment to the degree that it is effective enough is when we understand this point. The inseparable nature between the mandala of deities and appearance emptiness. Appearance hyphen emptiness. So to elaborate on that, specifically the vase empowerment. So now I'm going to read from the Garland of Views. It exists in many places. It's just I found the Garland of Views and I thought, this is a easy way to just reference that. As it is said in the Guhya Garbha Tantra, the Vajra aggregates, the five aggregates, are known as the five perfect Buddhas. All the many senses and feels. Senses and feels is referring to the I sense, the sense of I consciousness, and the field of the object. So meaning the particular consciousness and what the consciousness is conscious of. So all the many senses and fields are the mandala of bodhisattvas. Earth is Lochana, water is Mamaki, fire is Pandaravasini, wind is Tara, and space is Datishwari. The three worlds are pure from the beginning. The three worlds are pristine from the beginning. Pemasambhava goes on to say, the phenomena of samsara and nirvana are unborn from the beginning, birthless from the beginning. Yet they appear in the manner of illusions, capable of functioning and having the nature, since the beginning, of the 10 male and female Buddhas, and so on. All phenomena, therefore, are by nature the state of nirvana. The five great elements are by nature the five female Buddhas. The five aggregates are the Buddhas of the five families. The four kinds of consciousnesses are by nature the four bodhisattvas, and their four objects are by nature the four beautiful goddesses. These four sense powers are by nature the four bodhisattvas, and the four times are by nature the four offering goddesses. Let me look for, and then it goes on. Anyway, the organ of physical sensation is related, its related consciousness, its object, and the bodhicitta that arises from them are by nature the four male wrathful deities. The four extreme views of eternalism, nihilism, and the rest are the four female wrathful deities. The mental consciousness, the adamantine bodhicitta, is by nature samantabhadra. Its objects, phenomena, both compounded and uncompounded, are by nature samantabhadri, matrix of all phenomena. All things just mentioned have primordially the nature of perfect manifest Buddha. It is not something newly accomplished through the practice of the path. Yeah, so a lot of details here, and don't try to cram in all the details, but the general gist of what is being said, I think that should be clear. It's basically listing out all the elements in which right now our samsaric existence is dependent upon, primarily this body and mind. It's basically identifying all the elements that right now is the basis of our circling in samsara, identifying that basis as primordially, since from the beginning, pristine. Since the beginning, the mandala of deities. So if we just look at the aggregates, so this of course would assume, that we are familiar, right, with the understanding of the aggregates, of the five aggregates. So this says, this necessitates that the role of the five aggregates, the five skandhas. Now, if you don't know anything about the five skandhas, then to be told that the five skandhas are the five Buddhas, you're like, oh, okay, well, sure. So first, you need to see how the five skandhas is in fact. When you say I, me, mine, it's based on the five skandhas. So what are the five skandhas? Skandha, or aggregates, literally is heap. Pungpo in Tibetan, heap. 5 heaps. So what is the implication of heaps? What is implied in calling it a heap? There are 5 heaps. What is implied there? Bill?
Heaps of various things. It's just not one thing, but a heap would imply that.
Right. So here 5 heaps. So it means what? So within that heap, so let's say 5 heaps of, 1 heap of barley, 1 heap of rice, 1 heap of quinoa, 1 heap of millet, and 1 heap of wheat. So within the heap, how many barley grains are there?
There are many, many of these things.
Many, many, many. So heaps. So a heap of cement, a heap of sand, a heap of, maybe not a heap, a bucket of water, right? Mix it together with a heap of pebbles. And a heap of, I don't know, I'm not a construction guy. Then you end up with the right conditions and everything. You have what? Concrete, right? So that concrete, this is a good one. We call it concrete, and also the English word concrete means solid. But the solidity is an illusion. But that illusion is enough, to build houses out of. But they are the coming together of heaps of stuff. So the heaps all mixed together doesn't make them no longer heaps. They are still heaps, but they are heaps all mixed together. So then you have very strong concrete, or, many places in China, because of corruption, you have more sand than cement in this concrete. So the earth moves a little bit, all the buildings tumble. Whether it's concrete built based on, standards, set in the US or Scandinavia or wherever, Germany or Nepal, they are still heaps. So this is said to be 5 heaps. A heap of form elements, form element. And in that heap that constitute form, there are 4 grains mixed together, so to say, using a heap of barley, a heap of quinoa, a heap of millet, a heap of wheat, and then this heap called form is an analogy, is a heap of rice. But in this heap of rice, right, there's long grain, short grain, brown, and sticky. It's a mix of the 4. So what are these 4? Heaps that carry the quality of solidity, fluidity, heat, and mobility, movement. So this is the Buddhist atomic theory with regards to physical phenomena. And I've said, Dalai Lama also says, it's primitive compared to the Western element charts, right? The elements chart. It's pretty primitive, you could say, because only 4, It doesn't go into like, oxygen, hydrogen, and so on and so forth. That's about my knowledge of the element charts, oxygen and hydrogen. The rest, I've returned everything to my chemistry teacher. At some point, whatever I learned from them, I offer back in the form of a mandala. Too much no grasping in the wrong way is not good. So that's the first heap, form. So it says that when you analyze and look at a form, you see, right? So the most obvious is the physical body. And in fact, the physical body, every single part of this physical body is constituted by these 4 elements plus space mixed together. So like tooth, has stronger earth elements compared to hair, or saliva. Saliva has stronger water element than nails. So on and so forth. Then the form heap includes as well, not just what's here, but it also includes the form that one perceives, the smell that one smells, the taste that one tastes. Those are also elements of form. So there's outer elements and inner elements. So form actually encompasses not just the limits of this body, but the things that you wear, the things that you eat, the things that you taste, the things that you see, hear, those are all form elements. First heap, yeah. You could call this form element hardware. Then on the software end of things, right? Thinking of this more like a computer. On the software end of things, yeah. The basic software, the basic operating system is the element, is the aggregate of consciousness. Then again, consciousness is not one thing. It's a heap. So within the heap of quinoa, there is red quinoa, black quinoa, white quinoa, organic quinoa, GMO quinoa, all mixed together. So in terms of consciousness, they speak of consciousness of sight, consciousness of the eye, related to the eye organ, the consciousness related to the ear organ, consciousness related to the nose organ, consciousness related to the tongue organ, consciousness related to the touch, the organ of your whole body. That is sorted out to 6 sense consciousnesses, in the plural, because they are a heap. So that's the basic operating system, these consciousnesses. When a particular consciousness in conjunction with a physical one grain from the form aggregate and one grain from the consciousness aggregate, when they meet, right? When these two meet, then the other 3 heaps or grains from the other 3 heaps do their thing. Those are maybe apps. Those are the apps. But these apps, in this case, they follow a particular order, which is at first, the very first app that kicks in is the aggregate of what's called feeling or Vedana. Feeling here is not, as I've said many times, some of you are old enough to remember way back, there's this song, feelings, nothing but feelings, not those feelings, those are emotions. Here, feeling is sometimes it's translated as sensation. And if you look at how this aggregate is described, it is, you could say, precognitive sensations. So very subtle sensation. Precognitive means, even before you know what it is. Even before you recognize that it is an apple, you already have some sensation, like some feeling towards it. So that's why it's also translated as feeling. You already have some feeling towards the object. And here Buddha says, these feelings, this pile of, barley. There is husk barley, unhusked barley, and organic barley, so to say. Meaning, then Buddha organized sensations into 3 groups, he says. pleasurable, painful, neutral. So precognitive, before you even know that it is an apple, the minute your 1 grain from the form aggregate and 1 grain, right, from the sight aggregate, sometimes it could be smell aggregate, touches. When the consciousness touches 1 grain from the form aggregate, then immediately a feeling, a sensation responds. That response is like, don't care. Pleasurable, like. Painful, don't like. Neutral, don't care. And what is this like, don't care? They are the 3 poisons. They are grounded in the 3 poisons. Don't care is ignorance or confusion. Like, attachment. Don't like, aversion. And so we say that this Vedana is completely precognitive. You don't know yet what it is. You already have an opinion. You see why samsara is so sticky. It's because it's so quick, you know. Next, once feeling is there, the next aggregate that kicks in this one action of, you know, one experience turning up. We'll continue with the example of the apple. Under perception, under the aggregate of perception, then labels like red, round, fruit, all those kick in. Perception is related to recognition. Even if you have never seen an apple before in your life, because of red, you have seen red color elsewhere. Here you have a perception of red. Even you have never eaten an apple before, but the way it is shaped, you have seen a roundish shape before. So perception is the aggregate where it's beginning to be recognized as, oh, and then it happens all so quickly, right? This is like we're zooming in to see that it all comes together. Apple. Then the next level is what's known as formations. Sankara in Pali, or samskara. Not samsara, samskara. Samskara is mental formations. That's when the song feelings come in. That's when it gets all, oh, apple juice, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Apples, oh, I hate apples, you know, so hard to get really good apples. Oh, they're developing these hybrids of apples. Oh, when I was a kid, you know, my grandmother had an apple farm. I hated apples because we have to go work on the farm. Oh, apples, oh, America has such nice apples. You know, the apples that we get in Malaysia is always mealy by the time it gets here. Blah, 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 all of that is mental formations. So in one moment of experience, you can see how these 5 aggregates is what's at play. So first we have to see, you know, develop awareness of how from moment to moment is the 5 skandhas. in our experiences, in our moment-to-moment life. It's the arising and ceasing of the skandhas. Right? It's all just skandhas doing their thing. Then mental formations lead to notions of I. And now, under mental formations, I'm having an experience. Then that's when you more grossly engage in liking, disliking, don't care. On the sensation aggregate level, there's not yet. You don't even, it's precognitive. You don't even know yet it is an apple. Yeah. But the more gross level of liking, disliking, and a mix of like and dislike, and don't care, that's all under mental formations. So here it says all 5 of these. They are the 5 Buddhas. Form is Vairochana. Yeah? Form is Vairochana. Consciousness is Akshobhya. Feeling or sensation, Vedana, is Ratna Sambhava. Perception or recognition, that's Amitabha. Formations, mental formations, Amoga Siddhi. It says you should know that the 5 skandhas are the 5 Buddhas. Then the 5 elements are the 5 consorts, the 5 mothers. Space is Datishwari. Water is Mamaki. Sometimes also called Buddha Lochana. Earth is either Mamaki or Buddha Lochana. They are kind of, in some systems, they are switched. It doesn't matter, right? It's just a way of making the correspondences for us. Then fire is Pandaravasini, and wind or air is Samayatara. These are the 5 mothers. So, to appreciate these correspondences, yeah, first we have to understand, right, what the skandhas are. And first we have to see, not just understand, not just know what the skandhas are, but to be able to see how describing this as a constant moving, changing of skandhas is an accurate way of experiencing what's actually going on. So first we have to really be convinced of that and see how, when I said, I don't like you, when in fact what's going on is just these skandhas. Macbeth says, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. It is but a child's play, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. We enter the stage, we leave the stage, lots of, hoo-ha. See, that's on the level of, you could say, basic level, ground level, Hinayana level, to be able to see how what we habitually fixate and obsess over, I, my, mine, you, yours, right? All of that, see clearly, they are nothing but just skandhas. But because our practice includes the Vajrayana level, then these skandhas are not just left at the level of skandhas. Their innate nature, their pristine nature, which in Mahayana is called emptiness. That the skandhas are also empty. The skandhas are also empty. That is the Mahayana point. And what it means there to say that the skandhas are empty is because on the level of organize, or on the level of not organizing, on the level of analyzing and on the level of analyzing what we habitually call I, my body, my mind, and all of that, and seeing how these are just the skandhas. So the attachment and aversion based on the notion of I is now dissipated, right? Sense of I, me, mine, right? Now no longer so strong. But this is not yet far enough. Because now, even if we do not have a sense of I, me, and mine based on the gross level, on a subtle level, we might think, oh, form is real. Consciousness is real. Perception is real. That means we might become attached to the skandhas being real and existing in and of themselves. So on the Sutrayana Mahayana level, we need to see how they are empty. And empty there means what? Dependently arising. In the Lojong teachings, I reminded people, when Buddhists talk about real and not real, these are not English words anymore. Or the equivalent in Spanish, they're not English words anymore. This is special Buddhist talk. Real and not real, when we say, oh, it's real, oh, it's not real, yeah, it's not the same as our ordinary use of the word, oh, real or not real, like real news or fake news, it's not real and not real on that level, okay? Here, not real means they are just dependently arising, temporarily there, and conditions are there, they are there. When conditions are not there, they are done, finished. And so when we say that afflictive emotions are not real, it is not saying, depression doesn't harm. It is not saying, anger doesn't harm. It is saying that frustration, anger, these things, they're not real. It means you can get rid of them. They're not innately there. You can get rid of them. So this is part of emptiness. So in Paramita Yana, which is you could say, general Mahayana, the vehicle of paramitas. Buddha's Mahayana teachings are divided into paramita vehicle and secret mantra vehicle. So paramita means perfection vehicle. These are sometimes also called the vehicle of characteristics, which is where Buddha taught how all the characteristics that we see, they are interdependently arising and therefore empty. Then this same emptiness, at the level of when we have evolved to the level of Vajrayana, we understand them as deities. Then there is form, then there is color, then there is shape, then there is names, then there is, qualities. And why do we do that? Again, we talked about this already, in last week's classes on Samadhi Empowerment. Because this generation stage practice is the substantial cause for the future arising of Nirmanakayas and Sambhogakayas to benefit beings. So from this perspective, when we say Buddha's Mahayana teachings, there is the Paramita Yana and the secret mantra Yana. From this perspective, which is Kyoba Rinpoche, would say the same. These are not alternatives. These are not like, oh, you can choose this or you can choose this. But both are necessary in order to achieve Buddha. Which is the heart of the Gongchik is that, single intention. 84,000 dharmas is not 84,000 possibilities. One single possibility, which is to achieve Buddha, and all the elements that come together that result in the attainment of Buddha are the 84,000 dharmas. 84,000 dharmas can be summarized in the 4 dharmas of Gampopa. So if you are intimidated by, oh my God, I have to practice 84,000. I only have 147 and already I have lost a few. How am I going to get all 84,000? Well, focus on the 4 dharmas of Gampopa. Because there we also learn all 84,000 is included in the 4 dharmas of Gampopa. They also say, like, for example, the 84,000, 21,000 has to do with Hinayana, 21,000 Mahayana, 21,000 Vajrayana, and 21,000 indeterminate. All these different ways of summarizing things, organizing things into categories.
May I clarify?
Yes.
The 2 aspects or the 2 pieces of Mahayana being
Perfection vehicle, Paramita Yana, or secret mantra Yana.
Right. The first one is the interdependence, the appearance emptiness, which is interdependence. And the secret mantra is the
mandala of deities then.
Mandala of deities. Okay.
Yes. Correct. If you link it up to our Samadhi Empowerment text.
Dr. Lang,
Yes.
when you say we perceive form as Vairochana Buddha,
Mm-hmm.
so we are perceiving form as the nature of Vairochana Buddha?
Yes, yes, yes. You don't need to, like get an image of Vairochana and, like stick it on everything.
So the difference between different Buddhas, do
It
we
doesn't
have
matter.
to, doesn't matter. So it's merely a symbol.
Yeah, but when you do deity yoga, when it says, here, like in our Avalokiteshvara practice, here central Avalokiteshvara looks like this, then, in front looks like that, then you have to develop that. Yeah, not because the Buddhas have differences, but because it's to train our mind again. So you don't want to have a fuzzy image that is for training our mind. But then you've gone too far when you go, oh, Vairochana, I'm a Vairochana, oh, you are Amitabha, oh, you are, all that is, it's just nonsense.
So basically, we are perceiving the 5 skandhas as pure.
Yes.
Then it's a manifestation of
and
all
manifesting these forms. Yes.
these 5 Buddhas.
Yes.
But these 5 Buddhas does means something?
What do you mean?
Differences?
Huh?
Is there any differences or?
Yeah, of course. On the level of our training, there's differences.
I can't really see the link between like form with Vairochana and
This is just a map. This is just a mapping. Right. You have to assign meaning to it.
Dr. Lai?
Yes.
I came in late, but this is a very interesting subject that I've been meaning to look up in your prior teachings.
Okay, wait, hold on,
Yeah.
Larry.
Yeah.
Waiting. Let's go back to. You might have something else to say.
Yes, I have a question.
No. Hold on. Let's go back to Waiting. The prior question.
My question basically is
Yes.
Because when the practice is we try to see all these 5 skandhas as the 5 Buddhas family.
Yes.
And then each for the form it assigned to Vairochana and then
Yes.
the feeling to Akshobhyas. So
yes.
is there a particular essence related to each of them that we
Yes,
need to...
then you have the 5 wisdoms. What are the 5 Buddhas? The Buddhas are the 5 wisdoms.
Oh, we need to focus on that.
That too. As a matter of training and technique, then when you perceive form, when you look at something, and of course our instinct when you look at something is like, oh, nice or not nice. But if in that moment you can say Vairochana, if you can say Vairochana, then depends, on the level of your familiarity with these categories. If you're really familiar, then Vairochana, Dharma Dhatu, wisdom. Then in that moment, and I cannot say anything beyond that because it's something that you have to experience. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're saying, but hey, what is the connection between form and Vairochana? Hello, you will get nowhere if you try to, think it through that way.
Okay.
You have to apply the method. You have to apply the method. And what I am saying is like, so it's not saying like, if you look at, you're walking in the neighborhood, you look at the flower and you say Vairochana, and what I can say is, it doesn't mean, you replace your visual image of, this hibiscus and like a little Vairochana is sitting there. And oh, Vairochana sits like that, meditation posture with a wheel. Oh, Vairochana, Vairochana, Vairochana. No, not in that way. That I can clarify, not in that way.
Yes.
But your label, your mental label of, first of all, even in before you get to this level of secret mantra, the emptiness has to be understood. Before that, the ability to even recognize this is form skanda going on, that has to be recognized. And oh, form skanda, oh, it's also empty, oh, it's also Vairochana, all three. That is the training involved in vase empowerment. That is the practice involved in having received the vase empowerment. We make effort in doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Larry, now you.
This is a mental formation that's beneficial. This is a way of perceiving and habituating oneself, but the result is it's not only beneficial, but it's also creating because it's coming from our mind.
Yes, correct.
And it's as good as any other reality that's out there, which also has no inherent essence.
Yes,
so,
but this is a good mental formation. And so
yes,
in the Gongchik, I think second chapter, the chapter on interdependence, it will have a Vajra statement that says, everything is mental formation. Everything samsara and nirvana is mental formations.
Because when I've looked at these charts, they're like, I really don't understand. It's like, oh, well, this corresponds to this, but in what way is it connected? In what way, Baba?
I just answered.
Yeah,
I just answered to Wei Ting's point. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
It's not a scientific chart. It's a prescriptive. It's a prescriptive set of behavior and responses to things.
Yeah. Right. And we have to become habituated to it. We have to learn it and then become habituated.
Yeah. I mean, the truth, not the truth. I mean, often my feeling is like often when these things are taught, they are taught as if it's a description, but don't relate to the teaching so much as descriptive as it is prescriptive. This is the part where I always emphasize, all of Buddha's teachings, understand that they were prescribed. Of course, we do believe that the prescription is based on Buddha having seen clearly the nature of things. So the prescription is not made up without any connection to reality. But,
so
on the level of relating to the teachings, I personally find that it is more effective if we relate to them as prescriptions rather than statements about reality that you believe.
Yes, since all our concepts of how the world is are just concepts.
Yes.
But this is one which has very beneficial results and is more accurate than the others.
Yes, correct. This is a skillful. So once we understand this, then we don't need to get into wait. In this tantra, it says the consort of, the consort of Akshobhya is this. But then in that tantra, it says the consort of Akshobhya is that. When you understand that these are prescription, not description. Likewise, people again get all worked up and confused when they say, wait. In the Chakra-samvara Tantra completion stage, there's only 4 chakras. But in the Kala Chakra, there is 7 And then, oh, which one is right? Even in the understanding of the internal landscape, it is also prescriptive, not descriptive. It is saying, this is a skillful way. This is a helpful, effective way. Helpful in what sense? Effective in what sense? In the context of dispelling the problem of samsara. It is good to see this as having 4 chakras. Elsewhere also in Gongchik, it says the medical treatises have more profound information about these chakra, nadi, and energy than the tantras. Chakra samvara, kala chakra. It's a real shocker, for Jigten Sumgön to say that. I think some people feel like, wow, no, how can that be the case? Like the kala chakra must be right, very right, and then these others have to be. But there, Jigten Sumgön says no. In the medical tantras, often they have even more information, more detailed information about how the body works. So there, what he's saying is, when the Buddha gives teachings about the body, whether the physical body or the internal body, its purpose is not so that you have a healthy body the way you think about a healthy body. The purpose is for you to use this body as a vehicle to overcome the problem of samsara. And so then, based on that goal, he gives the instructions that are most useful to get there. Whereas in the medical tantras, the concern is a healthy body, conventionally speaking. And so then, whatever is taught there, whatever is discussed there, has that goal in mind. So this point in the Gongchik from Jigten Sumgön, we can use this to understand why in Buddhism, there's no quarrel between modern science and what they're discovering and what the Buddha taught. Because what the Buddha taught is more than sufficient for overcoming the problem of samsara. And what modern science will continue to discover, their goal is not to overcome the problem of samsara. So there's no contradiction, there's no fight. Yeah?
So this is also why you're telling us or suggesting to us that we not get too involved in trying to find very different deity practices. We get the point of the one, and then they all look alike, essentially.
Exactly. They are not, like one system is more accurate than another system, then you have missed the point. And so, especially in Kagyu, we have this saying, knowing one frees all. Chikshe Kundro. Knowing one liberates all. No need to know so many. When we try to know so many, we then get lost in the forest, or get lost in the trees and miss the forest. But when you learn the topography of a particular forest and all the trees, then learn in detail, as much details as you can. Yes, but don't get lost in, oh, but this forest and that forest, Within the context of learning all the details, it's part of the training. It's sharpening certain faculties. It's sharpening certain qualities related to Buddha qualities that needs to be sharpened, brought into focus. So there is a good reason why 722 deities of Kalachakra was taught. And why, if you're engaging in that practice of Kalachakra with 722 deities, then don't like have the attitude, oh, it doesn't matter, just one is enough. Then you are missing the point of why the Buddha taught 722 rather than one. But if your main practice is where the Buddha taught one, then focus on the one. The single deity, focus on that. Key is focus on it. Don't get distracted. So let's take a short break before we do this practice briefly. At the beginning, it's good and okay, both okay and good to do a practice briefly. Don't try to make it longer. And then when you think, oh, it's ideal to make it longer, but then you're still inexperienced in it, then it becomes a dull state that you kind of habituate. Then you're habituating dullness with regards to the practice. Then you have set in, an obstacle to the practice. So especially with practices that you're new to at the beginning, short sessions. So we'll just do this very shortly after the break. Yeah, let's take a quick break.